The story of the film begins with a young Chinese orphan named Jing. Jing devoted his life to work, to take care of his little sister, whose name is Tong. Jing cared for his sister very much and was like a mother and father to her. Here we see Jing taking his sister to school. Jing was insisting that his sister enter the school in order to learn and advance in her life. Jing and Tong live in a house together. Their mother had died due to a chronic respiratory disease, and this disease caused her to suffocate from time to time. Jing's mother told Jing to take care of his sister Tong, and Jing promised his mother that he would not leave Tong. Their father left their responsibility and left the country. Tong's upbringing remained entirely with Jing. Despite his young age, he assumed this responsibility and did not leave his sister. After the passing of the years and when Tong is 6 years old, Jing discovers that his sister has inherited the disease that caused his mother to die. The disease began to cause suffocation for his sister. After taking her to school, he decided to go to the doctor to check on his sister's health. But the doctor told him the sad news. And the doctor told him that his sister had been infected with the disease at a young age, and tell him that she must undergo an operation to get rid of the disease. He tells him that his sister may die if she does not undergo the surgery in the next few months. When Jing heard this news, he was very shocked and sad for his sister. Jing is trying in every possible way to operate to his sister, but the financial circumstances did not allow it. Jing used to work in a phone repair shop, and that his work does not provide him with the costs of the surgery because the price of the operation was exorbitant. The money that he gets from his work is very little. For the first time Jing feels helpless. He is unable to help his sister. Jing remained bewildered and thought about how to get money from the most beautiful operation for his sister, until a friend calls him and tells him that he wants him on an important subject. And when Jing went to a friend, his friend took him to a warehouse inside the factory where he works. He showed him a large amount of phones used, and tells him that these phones have minor problems and are easy to repair and then sell. Jing's friend begins to tell him about these phones and tells him that these phones belong to a businessman, but he was imprisoned because of a corruption case. And he owned a lot of merchandise, including these phones. The warehouse owner refused to give the phones to the businessman because 2 months have passed and he has not paid the freight. The businessman decided to sell them at a cheap price to pay the rent. And his friend tells him that he had thought of him when he found out about this because he knew that Jing needed money a lot. And tell him that he can fix these phones and then sell them. And tell him that the profits of these phones is very large. The idea surprised Jing, so he took one phone and saw the malfunction. Indeed, Jing repaired the phone in a short time because the malfunction was very simple. And then Jing took the phone in order to sell it and see how much money will be earned from the sale. When he sold it, he saw the amount of money he got from the sale, and knew that the profit was great. Jing is very happy and returns hope of saving his sister's life. Jing did not think that one day he would develop a work and increase profits from his work. And then he went to his sister and told her what happened. He was in disbelief that he would be able to perform Tong's surgery. But Jing needed the money too, to be able to buy all of these phones. Because the amount of these numbers of phones is expensive, he decides to take out a bank loan and buy the phones. And indeed, Jing bought phones. But after 2 weeks, a government decision came to ban the sale of used phones. The person who violates this decision will be imprisoned and fined. And Jing, when he heard this decision, was shocked. Because he now owns a large amount of used phones. He has taken a bank loan and does not have the money to repay it. The government's decision was enough to shatter Jing's hopes. And Jing decided to stop repairing phones, because there is no benefit from that. And he began to think about how to repay the bank loan. And he had no idea of the method. Jing started by contacting the phone manufacturer. He offers them to buy from him the used phones as spare parts. He began trying to persuade them to buy phones from him. But the manager was refusal, and tell him that the phones are broken and the International Quality Control will refuse it. He tells him that this will harm the company's name. Jing asks to give him a chance and tells him that he will make phones with the same quality as new phones. The director of the phone company agrees, but on the condition that he brings his sample and gives it to quality control to be examined. Jing comes back and starts working on a bunch of phones. After the work is done, make sure of the quality of the phones. The next day, he delivers a sample of the phones to the quality department. After that, the results appear, and the quality department approves all phones. So he took the papers and went to the director and asked him to buy the phones. But the principal denied what he had said and told Jing that he had told him like this to get away from him. The manager said to Jing that you are young and I can't trust you. Jing feels disappointed once again. But by chance, the company's president was present. Jing then knew that this person was his last hope. Jing showed the quality papers and asked the company's president for 10 minutes to explain the idea to him. But the head of the company was in a hurry and got into the car and left. But Jing didn't give up, so he decided to ride his bike and catch up with the principal. When he saw a traffic jam, he decided to leave his bike and go for a run. And he did not pay attention to the traffic light, so a car hit him and he fell. But despite this, he got up and kept running towards his only hope, which is the head of the phone company. And indeed, he managed to reach him and ride with him on the train, and tell him what he owns and try to persuade the head of the company to buy phones. The head of the company was listening to him carefully, and when Jing completed a talk, the head of the company agreed, but he set conditions, which are that the phones be intact and without any malfunction, and told him that he would not provide him with manpower or spare tools. And then, if the quality department approved the phones, he would buy them entirely from him and give him the money. After that, Jing agreed. The head of the company gives his number and address, and tell him that he must contact him when he finishes. Despite all the impossible conditions, Jing was happy with the last chance. And this was a big challenge for him. If he is unable to implement the conditions, he will be subject to a great loss. But if he succeeds, he will be able to operate on his sister. He will also be able to pay off his debts. Jing was confused and didn't know what to do. The bank asks Jing to pay the debt within 2 days. After 2 days had passed, Li Jing still had no money to pay. So, the bank seized the shop in which he works. As for the house, he sold his bike in order to pay the rent. Then he went to a friend to look for a job. A friend managed to find him a job in the factories as a cleaner. On the second day, he went and rented a warehouse to house his phone repair business. The place was very dirty, so Jing cleaned and tidied up. After a month, he managed to make it a better and simpler place. When he knew he couldn't fix phones alone, he decided to find workers to help him. And indeed, he managed to find a girl. It was known that she was working in an electronics store, but an accident happened to her and her hearing became weak. Because of that, they expelled her from work and she had to work in areas other than electronics. And he found a second person. He has been working as the head of the electronics department for a long time. But due to his nervousness, he was fired from work. Also, a third person was found, and who was spending all his time on the computer and in virtual reality. And he wanted to work in reality through his experience with the computer. Jing didn't just hire these people, so he brought others to work, and they were old but had experience in electronics. They all gathered to take a picture, and they became the workers in this small factory, and they worked really hard. Also, Jing continued to do cleaning and phone repair, because he needs money. Despite all these pressures, Jing remained interested in his sister, and kept sending her to receive treatment. In this scene, a person comes and wants to buy the phones of his user from Jing, but Jing refused because it was illegal. Those working with Jing have been working as one family, and they were not interested in money after they knew his story and his sister's disease. In this scene, the marriage ceremony of one of Jing's employees takes place. When Jing returns home, the door is locked. He learns that the landlord has evicted them because they have not paid the rent. Jing was at a loss and did not know where to go, and he had no choice but to sit on the street. He decided to ask his neighbors to help him on this day only. And indeed, his neighbors agree to help him, and his sister sleeps in the neighbor's house. Jing kept thinking about the second day and where to sleep. He decided to go to the warehouse. He arranged a place for them to sleep and be isolated from the workers. The next day, Jing is enthusiastic about achieving a goal. He used to sleep a few hours to complete the work. In this scene, it seems that the whole world is against Jing, as the warehouse owner comes and asks Jing for rent. Jing asked him to give him time, but the owner of the warehouse refused and told him that after 5 days, if he did not pay, he would be expelled. So Jing decided to go to the CEO of the telephone company. He waited for him in the rain. He was standing in front of the manager's car, asking for help, but the principal refused to help him, and tell him that you have agreed with the head of the company on all the conditions, including not paying in advance. Jing got out of the car in a deplorable condition. Memories bring him back to his mother when she was in the hospital and her health condition was poor, and he remembers how he promised her to take care of his sister. He feels that he has failed his mother and that he is unable to implement his promise. And when it comes back to the warehouse, sees that a large part of it was destroyed by the storm. And then the owner of the warehouse comes and tells him that he only has 3 days left to pay him the rent, or he will evict him. Jing tells the workers what happened and tells them that he can't pay them. But the reactions of the workers were different and inspired hope. They told him that they would take the phones to their homes and fix them, since the warehouse was closed. They tell Jing that they don't need their paycheck now, and they will demand it when he receives the amount from the company. Jing rejoiced at what they said and continued to work all night long. At this scene, Jing's sister sits and thanks him for everything he did for her. On the agreed delivery day, Jing handed over all the phones to the quality department. They were waiting for the result. After a period of time, the head of the company requested to meet them. The company president thanks them for what they did, and he tells them that the quality percentage is 87%. This percentage is very high. The head of the company made Jing an offer of a 2-year contract with a large sum. All employees were happy because this amount was large. Jing performed the surgery on his sister. Indeed, his sister's surgery was successful and she got rid of the disease. He managed to secure a normal life for his sister. 6 years later, Jing becomes the company's CEO. He was the youngest executive director and everyone is proud of him because he is a hardworking and sacrificial person. He was honored by the company for his successes. Here ends the recap of this movie. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel. I advise you to enter the channel and watch recap of great movies or watch one of these movies.